Chapter 6, Plunged into the Jamb of the Chapel Door. Plunged into the jamb of the chapel door. You know how Hedwig knew Clown Muffle? The lingering sense of familiarity frayed her until finally, curled in the closet with a washrag tourniquet for her missing arm, one big dove flashed in her face, Magnet. The chick from Magnet who bitched about everyone's costumes. And who looked infuriatingly adorable in her own costume so nobody could bitch back. Hedwig once tried anyway, only to receive a warning. The Magnet connection explained, kinda, why she wound up with Denver. Clown Muffle slopped another coat of pink soap onto the door.
Low on water. Let's leave soon. Yeah, let's not do that. Denver's on her way.
After 10 seconds of silence,
the girl from Denver's no good. Not what I expected. Besides, magical girls should rely on themselves. Clearly something's wrong with your head, but that's all right. My head? Yes. This Chicago, whatever it is, I don't believe in it. I'll straighten you later, but now's not the time.
She paused, then perhaps considered it was indeed the time.
Conformity. In a magical girl. That's the sin. The whole value, the whole purpose. It's to divide oneself from society. You and I are special, Lila. We create miracles humans cannot conceive. Why strip that from yourself? Chicago pays me cubes. I don't die. Neither do I,
said Clown Muffle.
No offense, your soul gem's a mess.
That comment forced a spasm through Clown Muffle, a perceptible ripple along Hedwig's skin. The whole, what'd call it, the whole aura of their space shifted. Any trickle of vulnerability from Clown Muffle put Hedwig an ounce more at ease.
It's nothing, it'll be fixed soon. Once I help the girl from Denver defeat Centurion DuPage, she'll tell me someone who can repair it.
Ah. Hedwig held out a palm.
Let me see it.
She expected resistance, a reflexive withdrawal as far as the closet confines allowed, maybe a hiss. But Clown Muffle plopped the egg-shaped gem onto Hedwig's palm as soon as asked. Definitely a loon. How had nobody taken advantage of her yet? The gem exuded a pale glow. Hedwig turned it over, careful to touch only the metal base with her fingers, and even that caused Clown Muffle to writhe. The gem had long cracks across it, which explained why her fucking heart exploded after 10 seconds of transformation. Worse yet, it had gotten dangerously dark, way darker than she expected given Clown Muffle's outward demeanor, because usually girls on the verge got turbo-loony. Well, Clown Muffle was already a loon, so maybe the normal looniness covered the despair-looniness. Bah! Why had she asked to look at this? Now she had a decision: did she return the soul gem as is and let Clown Muffle probably die in a few days, if not hours, or did she do the thing? The thing to help her. Her own soul gem was close to perfect condition. She had not used much magic, a short spurt of healing, an occasional attack, and the enchantment of the security guard's handgun. It made sense to conserve magic. At the same time, a not-dead Clown Muffle killed things a lot better than Hedwig did. If you looked at it like a magical investment. Fuck it. Awkward due to her lack of a second arm, Hedwig tapped the ring that contained her own soul gem and turned it into an egg. Next, Hedwig activated her magic. Thought crappy healing and lousy attacks were Hedwig's whole bag of tricks? Nope, she also had the awesome, fantastic, never ever bad power of transferring despair from another soul gem to her own. Tiny beads of darkness oozed out the cracks of Clown Muffle's gem and sailed into hers. She only kept the magic activated a few seconds, enough to clear a little whiteness in what had otherwise been dark gray.
That'll keep you out the danger zone a bit. Don't fucking transform anytime soon unless you wanna die.
Clown Muffle took her soul gem, inspected it, and turned it into its ring form with a painful twitch. Her teeth clicked together in her closed mouth. She looked everywhere except at Hedgewish. Yeah, don't thank her. Nobody else did either.
Gee, good. Now I can.
Clown Muffle shot upright. Several brooms toppled over.
Now I'll cut us a path to Centurion DuPage. Aw shit.
Hedgewish stood too. Despite Clown Muffle being something like 20 years old, she was tiny and Hedgewish towered a full head higher than her.
Stop! We're not. I am.
Outside tore a cataclysm of some kind, not an explosion, maybe one rung down from explosion. Enough to spook Hedgewish into Clown Muffle and almost take them both to the ground if Clown Muffle didn't somehow sidestep and let her fall by herself. The door kicked open and Clown Muffle, armed with only a mop, charged into the abyss. By the time Hedgewish got back up and wrangled herself around the door to shut it, it didn't matter. Denver and one of her goons had arrived. Smoldering star-shaped rocks littered the museum, no sign of wraiths save a few piles of grief cubes. Denver's goon, a tiny blonde chick, waved her arm and sealed the entrance with a wall of ice. Impressive considering the entrance's size, but the presence of a mere single goon less reassuring. Clown Muffle wandered between the steaming stars, looking disappointed and whipping the mop around until it slipped out of her hands and sailed into a diorama of an Indian village. Her foot came down on the spade of the shovel she dropped before they retreated into the closet and its handle flipped into her palm.
Glad to see you're both alive,
said Denver, although she looked at neither of them and instead scanned the area.
There's another entrance,
said Hedgewish.
On the other side.
If she acted helpful, maybe they'd forget her city of origin.
Aurora, please restrain Miss Lila.
Hedgewish was so confused why Denver called out the name of DuPage's lieutenant that she didn't react when a block of ice formed around her hand, so thick she could not even twitch her finger against her gun's trigger. All right. Fair. Hedgewish understood the mistrust. She had no problem when people reasonably fucked her over. The idea was that, if people acted in rational self-interest, they would only hurt her if she gave them a reason, and since she never gave anyone a reason for anything, she could have faith in her continued survival. Only when you got fucks like DuPage and the Empress who fucked her over because they felt like it. Thought it was funny? Then your own actions had nothing to do with it.
San Bernardino, you're covered in blood. Are you still able to fight? I refuse to respond to a name that terrible. You really think Clown Muffle is better?
Denver's costume had transformed, it sprouted more whizbangs and doodads. None looked useful. In fact, they looked stupid as Denver hopped onto a covered wagon and surveyed the museum with an imperious glint.
I'll take it as a yes, though. Good. Centurion DuPage surprised me, I'll be the first to admit it. But we know her game now and I doubt she has much more than she's already shown. Can't make a miasma inside a miasma,
said Clown Muffle.
Exactly. I thought the girls they sent with her would have powers to compensate her weakness, but we captured one already. We still outnumber them. We have the advantage,
said Clown Muffle.
You're nuts.
The weight of the ice block combined with her lack of a counterbalancing arm made Hedgewish lurch with each step.
If this is everyone left, DuPage wiped you out in one attack. What we need to do is get out, fast as we can. You. Lila. Your name is Lila, right? I'm not misremembering? I don't want to be one of those people who get someone's name wrong all the time.
Denver flicked her wrist and a wayward star obliterated a wraith at the opposite end of the museum.
Your perspective is valuable to me, Lila, but I don't care to hear it right now. Centurion DuPage said she would go atop the arch,
said Clown Muffle.
She's actually an idiot.
Denver hopped from her perch.
Fewer wraiths can reach us up there. She's limiting herself whether she knows or not. The more I think about it, the more possible it becomes.
DuPage was an idiot, but Denver was an idiot too. You had to be an idiot or suicidal to see what DuPage did and think, yup, time to fight her again. The last girl, Aurora 2.0, was her final hope. Hedgewish gave her most hapless "gee look at these idiots am I right" expression, but Aurora had such a huge chunk of her own hair shoved in her mouth that all hope died.
Okay, I know you guys don't want my opinion, but at least let me tell you, DuPage doesn't just make miasmas. Her armor, she's invulnerable. I know,
said Denver. She knew. She knew.
Clown Muffle sure didn't know.
The visor over Denver's eyes concealed most of her expression, but her mouth sure twisted in an interesting way.
Really? Because I briefed her about that. Twice. Had to make sure,
Clown Muffle said with a casual practice swing.
Doesn't matter anyway if you know or not,
said Hedgewish.
You can't beat someone who is literally invulnerable. I bet Centurion DuPage thinks the exact same,
said Denver.
I haven't spoken with her for long, but I have the distinct impression, correct me if I'm wrong, that she's somewhat egotistical. But an invulnerable enemy is not an unbeatable one. Nobody cannot be beaten,
said Clown Muffle.
If I fight her long enough, I will find a weakness.
Ultimately, Hedgewish's perspective mattered jack dick. Denver and Clown Muffle both wanted to go up the arch, so up the arch they went. First they tried the elevators, which still worked, only for Denver to get nervous and say they shouldn't trust electronics in a miasma. Shortly thereafter they discovered a maintenance staircase. Narrow, low-roofed. They trudged up it single file. Clown Muffle led, Aurora in back behind Hedgewish. Only a single dim light every few steps illuminated the path. Hedgewish was panting after a few minutes. No more than the occasional wraith blocked their path, no threat at all to experienced magical girls. More started to follow from behind, a jumbling mess of faces that lurked only at the deepest reaches still visible. They never drew closer, but they never fell away completely. Hedgewish considered herself a hostage. That was the best status for her, a hostage. Captured and held unwillingly by the enemy forces. Centurion DuPage couldn't get mad at a hostage. Okay, she easily could get mad, but she couldn't consider a hostage treasonous. Couldn't accuse her of abetting the enemy. A useless hostage with her hand frozen to prove it. Perfect. Perfect. Totally perfect position. Every step upward made her tremble more until Denver became a wobbly blur ahead of her.
It's better like this anyway,
said Clown Muffle halfway up.
10 is too many. 10 what? Magical girls. The more you have, the weaker they become. The magic is diluted. That's not how magic works,
said Denver.
Each magical girl draws on her own soul's energy, the extent of which depends on her potential and the character of her wish. Exactly. A magical girl's strength is herself. Her individuality and creativity. The more you have, the more difficult to stand out. This is not high school, San Bernardino. It's not about who has the quirkiest personality. This is a game of tactics and preparation.
Some preparation, said Hedgewish.
Lost 7 girls in 2 minutes. Others might say, given our current position, I had the perfect amount of preparation.
Whatever that meant. Uppity magical girls dropping mysterious mumbo-jumbo was Hedgewish's typical domain, so she had the perfect response, ignoring it entirely.
4 is still too many.
Clown Muffle was trapped in her own little conversation with herself.
Bad number. Orderly. 3's much better. I'm not part of your thing,
said Hedgewish,
so you can say you have 3, fine by me.
They fell back to silence. Save the crunch 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 of Aurora chewing her hair. She had not spoken the whole time. Did she even perceive the danger? Could 3 different magical girls suffer from the same communal insanity? Of course, Hedgewish was from Chicago. The communal insanity ratcheted much higher than 3. Then they reached the top. The maintenance shaft ended with a door on which was written the words observation area. They stopped and Hedgewish was the only one breathless. The hair crunched.
We go in fast,
Denver whispered.
San Bernardino and I make an opening and deal with her lieutenant. Then it's up to you, Aurora.
Aurora flashed a thumbs up.
I'll count. 1.
Clown Muffle kicked open the door and strode inside. Hissing under her breath, Denver slipped on the final step, caught herself, and charged after. Nothing was inside, which the lack of explosions or swishing shovels confirmed well before Hedgewish worked up the nerve to peek. The observation area was inside the arch's apex, a curved floor and ceiling studded by windows mostly black.
I thought you said she went up here,
said Denver. Clown Muffle only pointed with her shovel at a tiny square in the far corner of the observation area, where a series of unobtrusive rungs led up to a misaligned roof panel. Frantic hand signals from Denver corralled everyone into a huddle, except Clown Muffle, who did whatever she liked. Denver's hot whisper puffed against Hedgewish's cheek and fluttered Aurora's hair everywhere.
Okay, same plan. Come on up.
DuPage's voice from above. Clearer in the miasma than real life. Denver jolted so hard she nearly knocked Hedgewish to the ground, but Clown Muffle was already climbing the ladder. Denver tried to grab her ankles but missed and Clown Muffle disappeared above.
Damn it, can you listen to the plan?
Denver clamped her wand between her teeth and ascended. Aurora followed and nobody cared one bit about Hedgewish. Which was how she liked it. Except right now she had nowhere to go. And the crackle of static slithered closer from the stairway. She slammed her ice block wrist against the ground 4-5 times to crack and then shatter it, then went for the ladder too. Ascending a ladder with one hand proved difficult. She fell on her ass twice before she devised a climbing motion, mostly leaping, and made it the rest of way. She emerged upon a sliver of silver awash in a sea of black mist. Any sense of stars or skyscrapers no longer existed. No visibility to the ground below. A bend of a metal sea dragon elsewise submerged under a stormy ocean. She cleaved close to the nearest body, Denver, and whipped her head around expecting a wraith albatross scoop her in its talons. At the far end of the strip DuPage sat upon a wooden chair probably stolen from the museum underground, legs crossed and back tilted and a neck of uncorked liquor clasped in one hand. A surplus box with several more bottles twinkled at her tapping foot. Her veil rustled in the lack of wind. Aurora, the other Aurora, the Chicago Aurora, attended at her back. DuPage paid no attention to Hedgewish or anyone, swigged her bottle and spat a burgundy arc into the mist, but Aurora's eyes settled on Hedgewish and remained there. The barest tilt of a smile curved the left side of her lip.
I didn't, they captured.
Denver stepped forward and Hedgewish, who clutched her waist for support, flopped onto the metal.
Centurion DuPage. You've uncovered my weakness, Denver.
DuPage rocked back and forth.
Speeches. Talk at me long enough I implode.
The next syllable caught in Denver's throat as though she had intended to start another speech despite her previous plan of rushing in quick, which Clown Muffle followed and nobody else, making Denver's hissy fit especially stupid, until DuPage slammed the legs of her chair onto the ground and swayed upright, the ripples of robe straightening around her negligible body, at which point DuPage opened her mouth like she would give a speech instead, or hopefully only another acerbic barb, but DuPage didn't speak either. Because by that time a weird noise pierced the distortion of the miasma. It seemed to come from above. A drawn-out vowel sound, eeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeee a giant bird wraith would swoop in, soon more wraiths would follow from below. This had been such a bad idea. But both DuPage and Aurora looked up like they didn't understand the source of the sound either, and Hedgewish didn't know if that was less scary or more. The ee whipped and whirled in the skies above, twanging gradually into a single defined point as whatever uttered it drew closer and the force of the miasma's distortion upon it weakened. Everyone stared, everyone except Clown Muffle, who strode toward DuPage as though she either didn't hear the sound or didn't give a shit. At which point the sound became,
"It's me, bitch."
The miasma split and through the tears shot a girl. A girl on a broomstick with a stupid witch hat. A girl en route to the one person not paying attention to her. The witch plowed into Clown Muffle. Clown Muffle's shovel shot upward and span into oblivion. Clown Muffle and the witch became a tangled flail of limbs that skidded the thin breadth of the arch, skipped off, and shot downward. As the rip in the mist closed where she came from, a new rip opened where they went. Clown Muffle and the witch plunged into the darkness and disappeared. Gone. Out of there. Atop the arch, where once had been 6, there was now Hedgewish, Denver, DuPage, and the dual Auroras. Everyone blinked, silent. DuPage flung back her head and cackled.
"I didn't even."
She swirled on one toe into a lazy half-revolution and bent back so far her spine looked like the arch they fucking stood on.
"Didn't even."
A foot hooked under the leg of her chair and she kicked it at Denver, only for Denver to bat it away with her wand.
"Didn't even plan that. I have no idea who that witch was. None." "Aurora, fuck her up,"
said Denver.
"Aurora, stay out of it,"
said DuPage. Despite the identical names, both Auroras did their expected actions. Denver's Aurora spat the hair out her mouth and snapped both fingers to form 2 walls of ice that coiled out from the arch and then back around to converge on DuPage. At the same time, DuPage slammed her bottle against her own face and doused herself in alcohol. Her robes bubbled and an arm holding a lighter extended. Click. Flames engulfed DuPage. Aurora's eyes peeled back. DuPage laughed.
"Iceland paeothetic. I know a wench with ice powers 10 times your strength, 20.
Her arm retreated into her robes and returned with a cigarette she lit against her forehead, although after the first exhalation the cigarette fell to cinders.
"If something so generic, so common could stop me, think I'd be here today."
She rushed with the broken bottleneck and plunged it at Aurora. Aurora dove to the side, onto her wall of ice, and sprinted up it. Denver, meanwhile, had wasted the whole time chanting some pseudo-poetic gobbledygook that ended with Phase 2, Activate. And her costume transformed. Her visor extended into a full helmet and sharp jet plane wings sprouted out her back. Flames burst from the wings and she lifted upward. Hedgewish shielded her eyes, drew back, and stepped into the hole back to the observation area. Her hand and a leg caught the edges and kept her from dropping all the way. Good thing too, because when she glanced down, a few friendly wraith faces rose to meet her. Despite the jetpack, Denver either could not or chose not to fly more than a few feet above the arch, more like hovering than actual flight. She whipped her wand over her head and split the miasma with a stretch of cascading stars. DuPage let them hit her. The ones close to Chicago's aurora blipped out of existence, others smashed through Denver's aurora's ice or hit the top of the arch. The ground quaked and Hedgewish lost her already tenuous hold. The back of her head hit a ladder rung and bounced her forward so she landed on her face. 5 gray claws shot toward her. She raised her hand and prayed she still held her handgun and pulled the trigger whether it was there or not. It was there. Blam blam. Blam. Blam blam blam. The wraiths crumpled away. She rolled over and kicked until her back pressed against a wall and prepared to shoot whatever else moved, but nothing blinked except the grief cubes. Grief cubes. A dull part of her realized those might be useful. Any excuse to keep out of the fight above. She stuck the butt of her handgun in her mouth and scooped the cubes into a satchel that came complementary with her costume. Something exploded topside and a reflexive flinch caused her to glance through the displaced panel. From her vantage she saw only blackness, upon which danced occasional orange flares. Hard enough to grab cubes with 2 hands. Her fingers knocked them when they tried to grasp. That idiot Denver. Wasn't she supposed to be smart? Oh well. Let DuPage deal with her or... Someone watched her. A face in the doorway back to the staircase. A little girl's face with round cheeks and black eyes. A bob of neat hair tied in a white ribbon. A small smile. Hedgewish yanked the gun out her mouth and flipped it around only at the last moment to think that if it were a wraith it'd have static.
Who are you? From St. Louis.
From the doorway sprouted 10, 20, 50, 100 insect legs. She fired twice and the second shot struck the face between the eyes only for the face to sprout wings and antennae and every window in the observation deck to shatter and more legs to skitter inside. Hedgewish grabbed a rung and scrambled up as the legs or feelers or whatever the fuck they were converged on her. One leg kicked a rung and one kicked the floor and she shot up at a stupid angle and hit her head as 2 feelers impaled her through the side and snapped off inside her. She hooked her heel into a rung and wedged herself with her other leg to stop from falling back, but she could feel the legs writhe inside her. Her hand dropped her gun, she caught it between her thighs and was about to manifest a new version of her heart staff because its dinky heart beam might actually be more useful against a horde of fragile enemies than a gun with finite ammo, but before she did a shard of ice cleaved through the ceiling, came close to taking off her ear, and crashed down on enough feelers to give Hedgewish space enough to seize a rung and pull herself up. It took an instant after the ice came down for the thick bramble of feelers to chick their way around it and come after her. By then she made it through the hole and they had to funnel through it. Her gun slipped from her thighs and clattered against the metal, she clattered against the metal too. Everything had gone to fucking hell topside too. Curved sheets of ice formed intricate spiral patterns upon which Aurora sprinted and forged more sheets of ice. Structurally unsound pieces broke off and plunged downward. The other Aurora stood in the same spot as before and nothing touched her. DuPage, still aflame and now with 2 broken bottlenecks instead of 1, tackled Denver to the ground and plunged the glass into her stomach. Both bottlenecks shattered because apparently Denver's astronaut armor actually armored her. DuPage, undeterred, opened her mouth and spat out a jet of liquor that turned to flame straight into Denver's face. The flame parted upon Denver's visor, and whether it did damage Hedgewish couldn't tell, because the feelers inside her body drilled deeper and caused her to double up in agony despite the pain-dampening powers of her soul gem. Fuck Jesus, fuck. And out the hole shot 50 more legs that skittered scraggly-raggly all over the place. She kicked at them and crawled away. Her gun had fallen not far and she grabbed it. What she planned to do she didn't know, but it was hard to fucking think. Okay. She shoved the gun's barrel into the wound in her stomach and fired. Her body jolted as the bullet curatively tore her flesh, and she distinctly felt one feeler die inside her. Just in time for the other 50 to descend. Aw shit. A sliver of ice shot from the sky and threshed the teeming bushel. Hedgewish's head rolled back and she spotted Hera posed on a distant coil. She gave Hedgewish a thumbs up and went back to whatever she was doing. Which wasn't helping Denver, apparently. But Denver had her own plan. After DuPage ran out of flaming alcohol breath, Denver flung her arms around the flowing golden robes and locked them around DuPage's back in a ridiculous hug that nonetheless, assuming DuPage's body under her robes was like a normal body, and who fucking knew, pinned DuPage's arms and restricted her capacity to move. But DuPage's body was not like a normal body. She melted into golden goop, splashed out of Denver's arms, resolved into a puddle on the ground, ebbed with remarkable speed back a few feet, and then reformed into an ordinary DuPage. It surprised Denver less than it surprised Hedgewish. The jetpacks on her wings flared and righted her as she whipped out her star-tipped rod for another go. But Aurora acted faster. When DuPage did whatever she did, it extinguished the flames that had engulfed her. Instantly 2 cylinders of ice wrapped around her torso from above. Before DuPage had a chance to act, the ice swept over her head and down her front. It piled on thick and DuPage became an increasingly distorted geometry deep within. Not that for one instant Hedgewish expected this to be the end of her. Any moment she'd break out. It only took Hedgewish a few whaps to break the block off her fist, and Hedgewish frankly sucked. Of course, the physics might get wonky when you don't have the space to wind up an action. And the ice got thicker and thicker. It covered her from below so she could not even liquefy again. Denver pulled up her visor and exhaled. Aurora twisted her hands and manipulated more ice. She took 0 chances. At least they were smart enough to know they had to overkill the fuck out of DuPage. The ice finally stopped building. It was like an entire glacier had formed atop the tiny stretch of Gateway Arch. The metal creaked and groaned beneath it. Something inside bent. Fuck. Fuck. Said Denver.
I don't believe. Don't say it, said Hedgewish. Don't say you don't believe it, don't say it's over, don't say you've won.
And it wasn't over. Nobody had won. The second Aurora, who had stood on the far end of the arch the entire time, and who was only a gold amalgam of shapes past the glassy ice, shook her head and sighed. A small yellow object floated beside her, the same circle Hedgewish noticed when Clown Muffle dragged her into that horde of wraiths. Without any ceremonious hand-waggling, no incantations, or even a whistle, the yellow circle zipped forward and touched the ice. The ice disappeared. All of it. It didn't shatter, it didn't fall as a bunch of shards into the smoke. It ceased to exist. The glut that had coagulated around DuPage, as well as the tendrils that spread through the air, gone. DuPage staggered back, free. Denver's Aurora plummeted, free fall. Her Goldilocks ringlets whipped around her as she twisted in midair and tried to form new eyes to catch herself. It spread from the side of the arch, but her downward momentum carried her past before it reached her. The miasma parted and she disappeared.
Bye.
DuPage waved. She swayed back to her case of alcohol, uncorked a new bottle, and swigged.
So now it's just you two?
Hedwig staggered away from Denver and held up her hand.
No, I told you, milady.
A sharp pain wriggled in her gut and she tipped at a sheer diagonal until her forehead banged the metal. Her next sounds rose to no more than agonized wincing. The feeler still inside her.
You know. Way less fun than I expected.
DuPage swallowed, wiped her lips.
After that initial rush. It's all about the surprise. I think I just like to surprise people. I think I don't know what I like. I like to sleep.
She stretched her arms and yawned.
What would you do if I just sprawled out and went to sleep right now?
Denver said nothing.
Fitting response, that's exactly what you would do. You're not even good enough to beat my lieutenant. She definitely could not defeat me at this point. Exactly. Exactly. Hedwig, why would you betray the Empire for someone like her? She did not betray your Empire,
said Denver.
I captured her and held her hostage against her will. Now stand up and prepare to fight. The power of the stars surges through me.
At which point a magical girl dropped out of the sky and landed in the center of the arch. Followed by a second. A third. A fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. An eighth. It became impossible to count. Magical girls rained from the sky and each stuck the landing with a perfect little clop of her heeled boots or more eccentric footwear. They had no unifying pattern in their uniforms, all variety of themes and weapons. But they were undeniably magical girls. Somewhere around 30 or 40 landed on the arch, although none landed anywhere near Aurora or her revolving yellow ball. The arch, gouged in several places and bent in others, groaned treacherously. Denver almost dropped to a knee.
Collins, she said. Collins got the message out. You're here to help. I don't believe it. What city are you from? Memphis? Kansas City?
DuPage drew back, a note of legitimate concern tinged in what little of her face remained visible under her veil.
How? It doesn't matter where you're from,
said Denver.
It's just her, right there. Take her out and we save the city. You'll have all the grief cubes you can imagine.
The first magical girl who dropped, and who had landed in the centermost position, glanced from DuPage to Denver to Aurora to Hedwig. Her impassive face betrayed no emotion. She retrieved a parchment from a pocket, unraveled it, and showed it first to the side of Denver and second to the side of DuPage.
Hello fellow magical girls. Have you seen this magical girl?
The picture on the parchment showed a girl in a witch hat. A broomstick leaned against her shoulder. Nobody responded for some time. The girl repeated her query in exactly the same inflection. Finally, Aurora extended a hand and pointed into the miasma where Clown Muffle and her attacker had gone flying.
Thank you for your cooperation, magical girl. Farewell.
All 30 magical girls leapt off the arch and vanished into the mist. Silence reigned several seconds afterward as everyone shared a stunned blink of incomprehension and a communal thought of the possibility of communal hallucination. The thought didn't last long, because the next moment the strained and pockmarked structure of the arch crumpled inward at its apex. A jagged split opened, Hedwig fell. End of chapter. Chapter End.